Hi, I'm Julie, and I get the privilege of talking about the children's homes that ELI has established. So ELI has two large properties in Kenya. One is in the community of Alula, and one is in the community of Kipkaren. They were probably about a 2-hour drive from each other, I'm thinking. So they're, quite separated. But these homes are for children that have been orphaned, and they are doing just an incredible job with these kids. Each home could probably house about 100 kids each. I think they currently have about 70 right now residing at each of the homes. Each home has 4 sets of parents, a mom and a dad, times 4. And then each of those parents will take in about maybe 20, 25 children. So when the children arrive, they are given a mom and dad, a family of maybe 20 siblings, love, care. They have counseling for the children. They get education, which a lot of these kids arrive and have not even been in school. So they've got a lot of catch up to do. And most importantly, they're given Jesus. And it was so cool that we were able to participate in their evening devotions, and the kids would be singing, quoting scripture, one right after another. It was just amazing. I was so impressed by it. And they look healthy, they look, just doing great. So it was really exciting to see them and to meet those kids. For Harry and Charlotte and myself and my husband, we were both supporting children as child sponsors at 2 of the homes. And so Harry and Charlotte met Robin, and I met Lewis, which was super special to be able to actually meet the child that you're supporting and spend time with them and pray with them and play with them. And it was really, really special. All right.
Why don't you tell me a little bit about you did some nursing and some triage with children?
Oh, yeah. So because I am a nurse, retired nurse, I was able to they had a couple of concerns about some of the kids there, so I was able to check out a couple of the kids, look in a few ears with my otoscope, and then they all wanted their ears checked. And I also did a first aid class with the parents at the Alula home. And so that was really rewarding to be able to use the skills that God's given me and to help them in that way.
And then there were a couple of children who said they need some immediate attention.
Yeah, most of the kids are fine, but there were 2 children that did need immediate attention. I think that night they actually took those 2 kids to the hospital for evaluation, and I have not yet heard what happened, so we need to find out from Christina how they're doing. Yeah.
Okay, continuing on, one of the things we did while we were there was called Give a Child a Chance. And it basically was a lot of a Saturday that we did and on a soccer field. And prior to the day, we would see kids all over the place and invite them to come down to the soccer field on Saturday. We'd play games and snacks and stuff. And we saw an awful lot of kids show up. And all of them had to walk. None of them got dropped off by their parents in their little mom mobile or anything. It was all on their feet, and they walked everywhere. And it's amazing how far they would walk just to be there. But anyway, on Saturday, they showed up, and they just kept showing up and kept showing up. And we played games with them, and we told, 2 or 3 Bible stories. We did a bracelet that would help tell the salvation message story. They all got fed just some stale sliced bread, and they were just literally eating it up. They were enjoying that like that's probably the only thing they had to eat that day. Quite a lot of them, and punch, of course, and they couldn't get enough of that either. But that day they got a lot of Jesus. They got a lot of love. They got to play. in a safe place. It was really nice. The next day, I got the opportunity to go with a fellow up the road to another a Sunday school in a elementary school, a little small school up the road. And of course, we didn't hop in the little go-mobile to get there. We hopped it this way, and it was like that, both ways. Felt like it. It was quite a little trip. But got to see about 23 kids there when I got there, and there was 3 adults, including myself, and every one of us told a Bible story. So those kids got 3 Bible stories, bang, 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 from 3 adults, and we sang songs and just generally had some fun. Now, the other thing that I found out while we were there is they have no materials, Diane. Nothing. Not a pencil, not a Crayola, not a piece of paper, nada, nothing. So everything is just somebody like me getting up there telling a Bible story and reciting verses with them, which is okay. But you know how kids are. They like to do stuff, and it helps to reinforce. So that was kind of sad. Then I went back to the church. And got there in time to join the services, and about halfway through KB's talk, they come up and said, "Hey, they want you to go out and teach the kids at the church there." So I went outside, and man, I walked in the door there, and that's where our tents were the 3 days before, side by side. Was there like 8 or 10 tents in this building, completely wiped out? Just kids, filled up. So it was another one of those, okay, let's do another Bible story. And so we did, and the kids just ate it up. They just couldn't get enough. And a lot of those kids that I could recognize from the day before. So that time we spent there, it was tough, it was hard, I was wiped. It was worth it because the kids really were enjoying it. And again, no materials, nothing. And we've had a lot of discussion about that, and there seemed to be, well, nothing's free. I mean, they don't give money to anybody, so if you want materials, you got to earn it, as best I could tell. And I don't know what that process was. I didn't quite follow the whole story. My brain gets wiped pretty quick. So I didn't quite understand it, but it's an Africa thing, whatever. But anyway, for having nothing but a Bible and singing songs a cappella, it was great. It was great. The kids were just wonderful. Kids are, I keep telling everybody, I love Kenya. It's a beautiful place. It's very beautiful, but the people are the frosting on top, the cake. They are just so wonderful, so giving, so welcoming, so open. So they're just great. They're just great.
And actually, you're ready for your next segment, but something that we learned before we ever went, everybody that was training us and as we were preparing said, the key to a mission trip, you prepare, but you have to be flexible.
Yeah.
So like even what Harry was just talking about, he wasn't expecting to do all that on Sunday. It just came up, it was the opportunity, you step forward, you do it. And we all came home exhausted, but used. And that's exactly what Harry was doing. He was just being present and being used, and God worked through it.
Yeah. And it didn't help much that it was like 7,000 feet elevation. When you're used to 0, that's a lot. And my lungs are not that great, so they really felt it. But God gives you what you need when you need it, and that's kind of how it felt like. Okay, so I guess next is kids in the school. Wow, where do I start with that? The room that Charlotte and I had was right next to the path from the their dormitory to the schoolhouse. So every morning at 4:45 a.m., past the room, they were just running. They start their devotions at the school at 5 o'clock in the morning. 5 o'clock in the morning. 5:30, back to their rooms for breakfast and whatever they need to do to get cleaned up and changed into their school clothes, and then back to school at 6:30. And Charlotte and I walked over, and the head teacher gave us the full-blown everything. We got to see the kids all out in the front doing their thing, singing, reciting verses, welcoming the teachers, welcoming us. We got to go out and have, every time you show up, you got to show up and talk. So we got to show up and talk and pray for the kids. And then we got the grand tour of all the things that they're doing at the school. And it's amazing, the stuff that they're doing there. It's pretty rustic. It's not pretty rustic, it's real rustic. But they just loved it there. And the kids were, they did have paper. They did have questions that they were working. They was working on their exams for moving on up to the next level. And so, they did that all day, come back and have evening devotions about 5 o'clock. And they all met out the same place. Usually we'd show up. We got to turn to do a devotion. Lots of teaching, a lot of Bible stories, a lot of sharing with the kids. And they were just, again, they're wonderful. They would quote verses back to you and just bang, 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 bang. They knew more verses than I do. With my head, those are long gone. So it was really fun seeing that happen. Then they get dinner and back to school until some of them 11 o'clock at night. Not all of them, but some of them. Quite a lot of them at 9 o'clock at night. So they were at school an unbelievable amount of time. I'm not sure they slept. They must have, but it sure didn't seem like it. And they were always, I'd stand out there, watch them go back and forth. I'd try to get up in time to go say hi and, walk them across or whatever and play with them and and they would just laugh and big, beautiful smiles. That early in the morning, going to school, it was unbelievable. It really was. It was so encouraging and uplifting to me to see that. I felt like if I did any blessing at all, it was nothing compared to the blessings I received, because it was like times 100 kids or 200 when you add them all up. So it was a very nice trip. And like Julie said, we got to meet Robin, our young guy, that we brought him a soccer ball, and according to his house parents, he slept with it. So I guess that was a winner.
The Kenyans really value education. And every child in school, whether it's public or private school, the parents have to pay fees. And if their child's fees are not paid, they're sent home from school. So part of the long hours is in part because of COVID. They were taught at home and they had a lot of catching up to do. But in Kenya, you don't graduate to the next level unless you pass your national test. And if you don't pass that test, you're in that grade again the next year until you can pass it. So even in a very poor family, it's amazing how much they value education, and they do what they have to get their children's school fees paid so they can stay in school. So it was, I don't know about you guys with kids or grandkids, but do we have to do that? And you just didn't see any of that. They were excited to go to school, and they were giving it their all, and they were getting ready for their national exams, and so they were really working hard. But yet, anytime we walked in, we went and we visited every classroom. Every teacher wanted us to talk, and sing and tell a story or something. And they just couldn't get enough of it. So
And
it
you
was
walk in and they stand up to great you.
yes.
It was
Very
very polite and respectful.
Sing a song.
Sing a song or something,
And
yeah.
of course, they loved Harry with his beard. He got the nickname of, well, we got Abraham and Moses.
Yeah.
And, well,
That's better than Santa. I liked
yeah,
it.
was. And, you know, there aren't a lot of old people in Kenya. So for them, anybody over 60 is old, and they don't have a lot of them in their life.
So
I
I'm
don't know-
obviously ancient.
Yeah, we were, and so they wanted to touch our hair and our skin and see what we were like, because we were very different. They just don't have old people.
Yeah.
Another thing that we did was Discovery Bible Study. Now, 3 years ago, when Randy and Rick and I went to Kenya, we did Discovery Bible Study then. But, and it actually continued on after we were gone. The men had it continued on Zoom for about a year and a half between Kenya and a group of the men here at the church. But it kind of like petered out. Well, we did the Discovery Bible Study again. And this time, we did a little bit more prep work. And Discovery Bible Study is basically a way of studying the Bible without someone needing to prepare a lesson. You use the Bible, you have a scripture, everybody reads it aloud, then you write it down, and then you recite as much of it back, and then you talk about what it means to you in your life. And it can be used with non-Christians, with non-believers. And because there's not you don't have to be a scholar or know anything about the Bible. But this time we did some prep work, and some of the materials we had translated into Swahili. Their two national languages are English and Swahili. So we took the DBS materials that we had last time. We got a little smarter. We translated them, so one side was English, one side was in Swahili, and used it and trained again people from our village. They brought them in from Ngorongoro to Alula, as well as ELI staff. And then we had 5, because there were 5 of us on the team, we had 5 groups of breakout where we went through like 2 cycles of what it would be each week, to do it with a scripture, work with it. And it was really interesting because there were 2 ladies from our village that were in my group that all of a sudden they got it. And they got real excited and they started talking to each other in Swahili. And I'm like, what, is there a problem? What's going on? They go, no, we can do this. I said, what do you mean you can do this? They said, we don't have to be a pastor. We don't have to know a lot about the Bible. We can do this with our friends. And they got so excited. And I didn't tell you, but before we went, I had asked Diane if we wanted to give them like a journal that they could write in as they were doing the DBS study. And so Diane agreed, and for 3 or 4 weeks, we had the children from Rock Harbor just decorate the outside of these journals. So each one of them got one with a pen, and they treasured that. They were so encouraged that our children did this as a gift for them. But the whole point is, this is now a tool that they can turn and take back to their village and use with people who don't know anything about the Bible and just have a non-threatening discussion about it. And that was, I don't know about you guys, but that was just kind of a pivotal moment for me when they just recognized that this was a tool they could use. It didn't need to be someone who knows 50 Bible studies to pick a scripture and have it be used successfully.
And the kids also, you gave Bibles to the...
Oh, yes, and so another thing that we did is we bought a number of Bibles in Swahili to give to those from our village so that they would have, they all have tribal languages, but Swahili is a national language. And so I think we were able to buy something like 50 Bibles or something like that we gave out to them. And oh, they treasured that. And a couple, can I have an extra one for my church or whatever? They were so thrilled to get the scripture in Swahili. So thank you for reminding me about that. Who's up next? Harry, you're back on for Ngorongoro.
Okay. Ngorongoro, quite a place. It is in the mountainous area. It's really beautiful. A lot of green, a lot of up and down, but just really a neat place. Like I said, myself and 2 of the other fellows that were there walked around quite a bit, inviting the kids to the event on Saturday. And we, of course, went to the Actually, it was a girls' high school that had the field. We went there, and we met probably, anybody in a official capacity we met, all the way up. And then we finally got to the principal's office, met her. She passed us off to the vice principal because she had to go somewhere else. And so we chatted with her, told her what we were doing, and I guess they had some paperwork that they had already filled out. And they were thrilled that we were going to be using the field and what we we're going to be using it for, and they gave us their blessing to come on and have a good time, and to get to the field and all. Yeah. So it was nice. But while we were there, the school was having their school council elections. And not only was it their school council elections, they had the actual official voting people there, putting on a real election for them for their school council. So they're teaching these girls what a real election looked like, including certification and everything. So I thought that was kind of neat. And of course the girls were wonderful, and they're watching, and I'd wave, and if they were dancing or something, I'd dance a little bit with them, and they'd chuckle, and so it was a good time. But other things in the villages, we also met with the assistant commissioner of the area. Like second in command of that area, and then his boss reported directly to the president. So we sat in his office, and he thanked us for what we were doing, and if we needed anything from him, to just ask. And it's a government official, mind you, asking us how he can help us doing this, because they know the statistics that KB gave earlier about how lives are being changed, and the police's jobs have become so much easier. Families are staying together, and the area is just, wow, when God gets hold of a place, he gets hold of a place. And that place has gotten hold of. And even the government recognizes it, and they are ready, willing, and able to be part of that. So, that was an amazing visit that we had with him. And, just not the government officials, but everybody we came into contact with was like that. It was a lot of fun being around that and seeing how God was working, and how he can work. And I was there 3.5 years earlier, and saw glimpses of what was going on. But 3.5 years later, it was like, wow, this place is exploding. And one of the ladies, I called her the visionary. Her name was Julia. Met her the previous years at her house. We had chai there at her house, and had chai again this time. And she is always thinking about, well, how can we change, not just women to change, but men. How about men? Let's do men too. Well, how about not just men, but how about families of change? And so she's just going, and she's not happy with just women of change. Well, what's next? What's next? What's next? She even talking about getting a car so she could take people to places they'd need to go to as a ministry, a car ministry for her. And everything she did was visionary. And are we going to talk about the little garden that they had there? Okay, never mind. I will say this: when I was there 3.5 years ago, it was pretty impressive. This year, it was 3-4 times larger, and it was like way beyond impressive. It was just astounding what was going on there.
If I could piggyback to what Harry was saying, there are government officials in Kenya that have approached Empowering Lives International asking them to expand into other communities because they see the difference that the ELI approach is. Not giving money, but giving training, and not only giving training, but preaching the gospel, that they're seeing the impact in these villages and are asking ELI to expand to others. Wouldn't you love to see that here? Right? Just a tremendous difference. Julie, would you take some time to talk about the Scarf Ladies and your prayer partner?
Yeah, so back to Norangarai, I guess in 2019, probably KB, when you were going over your first trip, they started something called like prayer partners, and they shared scarves. Probably many of you have a prayer partner, and shared a scarf with a woman in Norangarai Church. So it was really exciting to go and see KB reunite with her prayer partner, Gladys. They hadn't seen each other in 3 years, and so it was really sweet, and knowing that they had prayed for each other for those last 3 years. And then Shar was able to meet her prayer partner for the first time, Elizabeth, who they had never met other than, over distance. And so to meet in person, it was super sweet. Well, my husband and I came to Rock Harbor after 2019, that time, and so I never had a prayer partner. And so when we were on the trip, I said, KB and Shar, you guys have to help me find a prayer partner. I want one too. There's like, well, something will open up, Julie, we'll find somebody for you, or it'll just happen, And sure enough, one evening, this young lady who came, who is very active in the Norangarai Church, she teaches Sunday school, she leads the choir, she's just something else. She's just a sweet 36-year-old young mom. She's got 3 kids, and her name is Victorine. And so Victorine prayed, and I'm just like, oh, I just admired her so much. She was such a great young lady. And so I said, Victorine, do you have a prayer partner? She said, no, like, what's that? Somehow I don't know if she wasn't there at the time or what. So I said, would you be my prayer partner? And we were just so thrilled. So Victorine is my prayer partner now. And so cool with WhatsApp, she and I are able to chat back and forth. So that's really nice. And so we'll be together forever. So.
And then there were just a number of pictures of you.
Oh, yes. So Lori Lewis had a prayer partner named Celestine, and when Lori heard I was going, she said, oh, will you please take these cards to Celestine, these pictures and cards, a letter she had written. I gave that to Celestine, and Celestine was just over the moon about it. So I recorded a video from Celestine, and she went on and on and on for probably 5 minutes, a message in person to Lori, and that just meant so much to Lori when I was able to share that with her too. So super cool.
And you actually took pictures of a number of updated prayer people, ladies that you could turn around.
Yes, yeah. So I'm searching for certain people to match them up with their prayer partners so I can give them an update of what their person is like in person and their personalities and all that kind of stuff. Because especially the women of change, they were super joyful and fun-loving, and they were a lot of fun.
So in fact, like for example, the headband that I'm wearing that we each got one, they were made by the Women of Change. And last time when I was there and I had a little mishap and I ended up at the hospital, and the nurse who was taking care of me said, where did you get that? And I said, oh, my friend gave it to me. And I didn't think anything more. She goes, you can't buy those. And I said, oh, okay. She said, no. Those are tribal, and those are made only by the tribal people and only given to their friends and family. And I said, well, I guess I'm friends and family then, because that's how we got them. And we all got those stamps, so that's just kind of a reminder of the friendship that you develop there. Women of Change, was started to focus on, it was something that ELI didn't intend to get into, but they just had an opportunity to work with some of these women who were notorious brewers and work with them in their villages and give them training not only about what can you do with what you have, but how to run a business and how to expand and what you do. And so one of the things that Harry mentioned is that Julia, who is a Women of Change over several communities, including in Gorngaroy, her mentor, who had been a brewer and brought Julia into the fold, had started a tree farm. And what they did is they took seeds and grew them into saplings and then sold the saplings to people who needed trees. Well, when Harry was there 3.5 years ago, he saw the tree farm then. We didn't see it when we went for our first trip. It has now expanded. I think it is now 8 acres. They keep getting grants from the government to continue this. They just got an order for 10,000 saplings that are being sold to the government, and they bring women in as they're leaving their brewing career and doing something different. They hire people in the community to come in and do it, and every woman has their own plot, so if they don't work their plot, they don't get their money. I mean, they've set it up very well. They have accountability, they have incentive, they can expand, they can prosper, and as Harry said, Julia has, came up with, during COVID, she came up with this Seeds of Change. For us with COVID, we made grocery orders online and either had them delivered or picked up. These people don't have refrigerators. They have to go to the market every day to buy fresh food, or their milk that they get from the cow lasts 3 days without refrigeration. Yeah.
That third day's really good.
Yeah, really good stuff. But so she said, okay, we need to have find seeds that will grow quickly, that people can get enough food to sustain themselves through COVID. So that was something that she had come up with. And then it's expanding to, okay, we're getting the women trained, but what about the men? So now it's like team of change. And so we had lunch at her house with a set of like 4 or 5 families that she and her husband are like mentoring in. Maybe the women are involved, but the men are kind of getting on board, but she's, including them in so many ways. It's just amazing when God gets a hold of your heart, if you show up and you're ready. He just continues to give Julia idea after idea after idea that is just transforming multiple communities and doing work. I can't see what it's going to be like next year when we go. So get your thinking caps on, those of you who want to go and go, gosh, I wish I would have gone this time. Because it's every year we're just seeing transformation of people through what these people are doing. Mm-hmm. Kip Karen, Demo Farm.
That's me. So both Alula and Kip Karen have farms as part of their training facility where people can come, farmers get new skills in organic farming, new techniques to improve their output and be more productive. So both of the facilities have those, but we were particularly, and on each farm, they have like banana trees and avocado trees and mangoes, fruits, vegetables. They're growing kale, maize, lots of maize. That's a staple there. All kinds of vegetables, delicious, wonderful vegetables. And actually, both of the farms provide a lot of the food for the orphanages. So it's a really great system there. But the farmers come in and they will stay there for a couple of days and they'll get training in improving their agriculture, both farming and in their livestock. And then also given the Word of God. And so that's part of the training. They're given both the skills, work skills, and also biblical skills. So at the Kip Karen farm, we were really impressed. And that was probably, I'm trying to think of how many acres did we say that is, the farm itself? Hard to say, I'm not good. Maybe 5 to 10 acres, I don't know. It was pretty big. And so one of the really cool things they had at the Kip Karen farm was this hydroponic, aquaponic system, if you've ever heard of that type of thing. And so they had these 2 large tilapia ponds where, and they would throw some feed out there and the tilapia went crazy, just loaded with tilapia. And then they also had some tanks indoor filled with tilapia. I'm not sure how that all worked. But then they had an indoor nursery where the plants are growing and they're getting nutrients from the water from the tilapia that's filtering through and feeding the plants. The plants are not in any kind of soil at all. They're just soaking in this water and gathering the nutrients from the tilapia. And then, in turn, that water returns back to the tilapia, and that feeds the tilapia oxygen and their nutrients. So it's a symbiotic system that was just amazing. The gentlemen that were running it are just so bright, so intelligent. They probably have their doctorate degree in agriculture. We were very, very impressed with their whole system. So they're doing this, probably teaching farmers, I don't know, maybe on a smaller scale, how to do something like this. But in the meantime, that tilapia is feeding the kids, the produce is feeding the children. It's just really amazing. And then it's better for the environment. It's organic. They're not using harsh chemicals and things like that. So it was really impressive. Very impressed with that. Also on that farm, they had dairy cows that they milk for, like she said, for the milk every day for the children. They had sheep. I'm sure they had chickens. I don't remember seeing chickens, but I'm sure they had chickens too. And pigs also, and they were working on new pens, building new structures for them. And it was really, really well done. They grow silage for their livestock right there. So it's just a self-sufficient program. It's really, really impressive. For the farmers, when they come in for training, one of the things they do, they may say, well, I only have a small plot of land, but they will teach them how to do this vertical farming, excuse me, that doesn't require a lot of land. They just grow up and they teach them the skills on how to do that. They were teaching them how to produce their own charcoal, because one of the things I noticed was my eyes were burning. For quite a bit of the trip, I'm like, why are my eyes burning? And it's because they cook over just wood flame, over wood, and that just produces a lot of harsh chemicals and really pollution into the air. So they're saying if they can cook with charcoal, it's a cleaner way of cooking and more effective. So they're teaching them how to create charcoal, how to build charcoal, and they have those charcoal little ovens. And then also how to make their own ovens for baking bread. They're just so innovative. It's really impressive. I was thinking about a couple other things. I'm jumping back to the children that I forgot to mention. As part of that, they also have a bakery, and the families take turns once a week, and they make their own bread for the kids, and they make 12 loaves every day, 12 big loaves of bread every day. Each family, or one for the whole group. So it's amazing how they have that all worked out. And the other thing I forgot to mention about the kids is they are fully adopted when they come into the home, and that is their parents, that is their family from here on out. And so they continue to support those kids all the way through college, through university level, until they are self-supported and on their feet. And so that was really, really impressive. We actually met a few of the kids that were college graduates and now working for ELI. So it was really exciting to talk to them.
When you were talking about the charcoal, I realized that I forgot to talk about the fact that we visited a current group.
Oh, right.
One day, Julie had gotten permission for us to go visit. She had met her a week earlier at an event, like kind of a farmer's market, and got permission for us. We all walked down the hillside, almost to the bottom of the valley, to get to where she was brewing. And we actually went into where she was doing the brewing, and she showed us what to do and talk about caustic and burning. I mean, I literally couldn't stay in there. It was so hot, such a harsh environment, and there were lots of kids running around. She was taking care of some of her grandkids so her daughter could stay in school, because she wanted her to stay in school. She wanted to lead this life, but she didn't have any alternative, right, to support her family. Well, we spent time just encouraging her, and I didn't think a whole lot more about it, but the next day when we were having lunch, after they give a child a chance, this woman came in the room, and we looked at her, and we realized that it was Lydia, this brewer woman that we had met the day before. She cleaned up, and she put on her best, and she just wanted to come and thank us for encouraging her. And I'm telling you, God's got his hand on Lydia's life, and she's like one of the next ones coming, As Julie mentioned, ELI makes a commitment to these children through either their trade school, their vocational school, or university. And just a couple of weeks before we there was a young man who was part of the original group that had been adopted into ELI, had gone to university, was working out in, the world. He was 26 years old, and he was murdered on his way home from work one night. And everybody was just in shock, just screaming about this young man. And we even wondered whether we should even go to Kenya, with what was happening at this time. And we said, if you don't want us to come, we completely understand. Oh no, we're so looking forward to you coming. And at that time we thought of, well, maybe our role is to be encouragement for the ELI staff, the parents, the children, as we were the first group to come since COVID. Okay? So right before we show up, this young man, Kevin, was killed. And just yesterday, I got an email from ELI, because when he was killed, he was part of the original group and was good friends with Don and Amy Rogers, the U.S. founders of ELI, along with Samuel from Kenya. And they were just all grieving so much, and they hopped on a plane within 24 hours, got their visas, went back to mourn with the whole family. And what was amazing is there were 70 grown college student graduates that came back from all over Kenya, most of them that had not even shown up since they left ELI and were graduating from college. They came back to mourn their brother and their friend who had passed. And John's email was just so touching with being reconnected with these young adults and these children. And what he said was, so many of these children said, thank you for investing in and changing my life. They're living with hope and a future that they would not have had if it weren't for ELI. And so they put together about a 2.5 minute video of the people celebrating Kevin's life, and I want to show that to you right now. I don't know if I give you another intro there, Sandra. Both of his parents had been buried 20 years ago. So he was taken in as a child at the age of 6 to ELI and given a life that he had no way of receiving in any other way. This is the power of what we're doing through ELI there in Kenya. I just also got the package that you found for me, Diane. There's just some new brochures that ELI just sent me this week. I didn't even know if they're back in the back. If you'd like to pick one up and just get more information. But At this time, we'd really just like to, there's a lot of things we could talk about, but we just kind of wanted to give you an overview and open it up to ask questions. So if anybody has a question, I'm going to repeat it because we're recording it, so we want anybody else who's looking at it later, I'll just repeat your question, and then we'll just answer the best we can. Anybody? Diane?
Kevin's video kind of answered the question, but when they were singing and reciting their scripture verses, was it in English or was it in Swahili?
So Diane was asking during all these memorial services, were the scriptures and the songs, were they all in English or Swahili? What we saw in this video is that they were in English, but I know they had something like 6 different services for him, some of, at least 1 or 2 of them in his local community. I'm pretty sure there was a lot of Swahili singing too, but English is one of the 2 national languages in Kenya, so there were many people who know it, but more rural you get, the more they're either going to be speaking in Swahili or one of the 50-some tribal languages that are variations of Swahili as well. While we were there, we heard a combination of both. There'd be songs that they would sing in Swahili, and we would just sing and kind of dance along, but they would want us, then they'd sing part of it in English, and they would just kind of go back and forth, and it's just, it kind of gives you an idea of what heaven's gonna be like with all of God's children together and singing and worshiping together. We worshiped alongside of these brothers and sisters, and we didn't know all the words, but we sure knew what was in the heart and that we were praising the Lord together. I mean, it was glorious.
Spirit move you.
I kept thinking of the Lord's Prayer, where he says, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And so many times I'm like, this is like a slice of heaven. Yes, they're poor, but they are so united with Christ and just beautiful believers. It was especially with the children, in the orphanage, they're being cared for like heaven. So it was really sweet.
I know that's something that Rick and I talk about so often, is they live Christ. We have a lot of stuff. And I think sometimes our stuff owns us. And they appreciate what they have. And they have an attitude of thanksgiving. And they support each other. And they work with each other. And if your friend or your neighbor needs something, they share what they've got. And they're not worrying as much about tomorrow as we are. I'm a financial person. I'm a planner. I am, my 401k, my IRA, whatever, I'm working and being a good steward, right? Which, I think is important too, but it's not the reason I'm here on earth. I'm here on earth to give God glory and to be used by him. And these people get that. They get it. And it puts me to shame. I'm not going to speak for you. I'm going to speak for me. But it's something that Rick and I talk about frequently. The difference of living Christ is the only way I can describe it. It is live Christ. Whereas we, okay, how much time? Okay, I'm going to bring up the videos. Okay, yeah, okay, I've got my, I've done those, that 15, that 5 minute, that 30 minute, whatever. They just live Christ. Anything else from you guys?
How was it working with translators?
How was it working with translators? Anybody want to go? Oh, well, I guess I preached. I had to preach on Sunday, which was like, kill me slowly or kill me quickly. But actually, even when we were doing both the DBS training, or when we did devotions, we didn't really have translators because the children knew English. When I preached on Sunday morning, I worked with Dennis. Dennis was our translator, so, you speak, you have to have them translating, you're going back and forth. So you have to allow about double time for the message that you're going to give. Dennis, and sometimes in my group for DBS, one of the proficient English speakers would translate for me for some of the concepts that maybe weren't really well known. But there were so many people that were so skilled in both English and their language that they were just very gracious in helping us. And I'll tell you, the few times that I tried to say something in Swahili, I know that like a couple Sundays before we left, we recorded in morning service a greeting to take to our village. And with our bungled Swahili. And so Sunday after we played that for them, and I said, you know, your guys' English is a whole lot better than our Swahili is. And they laughed. They were very gracious. But it was quite fun actually working with the translators. Yes, ma'am.
Do they have Bible classes that are your whole education built around the Bible?
Within the school?
Yeah.
So the question is, do they have Bible classes, or is the Bible part of the curriculum in the schools? Well, the schools that the children from ELI went to are private schools that do teach Bible curriculum as well. We've asked that a couple times. It's not that the public school, I don't think some of the public schools have a Bible class, but it's not integrated in the whole curriculum, like those two schools that the children from ELI and Alula go to with them. Even though it's a private school, the curriculum does include Bible as well as all the subjects. And they start the day in prayer, and they stop for devotions, and they're very mindful. But those are private schools.
Where do the young people go to college?
Where do the young people go to college? There are a number of both vocational schools and universities within the country in Kenya. There's quite a few. And what they get, the score they get on their national tests when they finish high school determines what school they can go to. So it's highly competitive. They really study to get into the best school for whatever it is that they want to study. But their score dictates where they're allowed to go to school. And some of them, not all of them, want to go to university. Some of them want to do a trade, but they still have to get into a school that has that. So they're studying for the school and subject matter of their choosing. So they really work hard for that. It is refreshing. As I said, the country really values education. They know it's their way out of having a different life for their children than they have for themselves.
We had an opportunity a few years back at the and we got to go to the Philippines and visit Val, wasn't the Netherlands, outside, in the Bronx Heights. And all the children, it is Catholic, Catholic Catholicism, but all high schools, all jails, all hospitals, Catholic hospitals, we all got to go in and share the Lord. And it was so refreshing as Rich and I and the school districts and the states. And it's just like so refreshing. That they're gonna get out the Bible message and that you can have Jesus in your heart and to see all these children in the high school understand that.
So just to try to recap, she was sharing that she and her husband have gone to the Philippines and very Catholic-based faith, but Catholic Christian faith, and how prevalent you saw it being taught in schools, in jails, and in hospitals, being able to share, different from like what we often experience here in the U.S. of having the things be regular and what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do. It's very refreshing to have it be allowed in so many aspects of your life. Yeah, it's not the same kind of opportunity that we have here. Yeah. Anybody else? Any other questions? Harry, Julie?
Are we going next year?
Yes, we are. We're planning on going next year, so I don't know if we'll go in a time frame that would be more in the summertime, so people that are that work in schools might go. We're kind of trying to figure out when would be the best time to go. There's basically, for going to ELI is 8, maximum of 10 for the trip. So it's not, we can't take like a bus load because they have to drive us around everywhere. You know, the whole country, I mean, they basically walk. And when you get out to the villages, they walk everywhere. We walked down to that village, we walked back up, you know, you walk everywhere. But ELI accompanies us everywhere we go. We did visit a couple of slums. I mean, we didn't even talk about that, where just, million people living in a very small area. And it was just even just driving through it was rather, we thought about getting out and walking. Gringos, white people, we kind of stick out, it was very humbling to see them living with what they do and what they have and what they don't have. And But yes, we're planning to go next year, 8, maximum of 10 people, so be thinking and praying about it. And anytime you guys want to know more, it'd be a favorite topic for us to talk to you about. So feel free to ask us at any time. And like I said, these bulletins are, this new brochures in the back. And, there was another thing that was really interesting. They asked us to bring pictures of our family because they said this is the best gift you can give anybody, and they will cherish this for years and pray for you. And it literally became a mob when the kids were wanting pictures and I didn't have enough with us. At that time, it was like they were literally being torn out of people's hands and they wanted more and more. It was just really kind of amazing that was, you didn't have to give them a gift of much of anything, just having a picture of your family. They were just, amazed by, intrigued by. Thank you for your time. We enjoyed it. We just love sharing it. Kenya is just kind of a
Special place.
Special time. So, okay, Julie, why don't you close us in prayer?
Lord, we just thank you for this opportunity to share the experiences you allowed us to have in Kenya. We thank you for the Kenyan people and what you're doing in and through their lives, God. We just ask your blessing upon them. We ask that you would further your kingdom there and that you'd be glorified. In Jesus' name, amen.